Hi, Saeed. Hello and welcome back. Ahmed, it's a pleasure to have you with us again tonight.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, hello, Dari. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And good evening to you, Ahmed Benchemsi. Thank you for being with us again for the second time. 2 weeks ago, we had a program where we tried to cover just about everything, and we realized that we definitely needed part two of this program in order to actually clarify certain aspects of the transformation that is taking place in Morocco. There is a very important aspect of the transformation that has taken place, Ahmed, which is the new constitution. In your opinion, how much has the new constitution done that's different than the old constitution? What's in it? Is there any meat in it?
I like the way you phrase this question. Is there any meat in it? Well, it depends what you want to eat. Depends the kind of meat you're looking for. I think the changes are not that significant. I said earlier on Al Jazeera that this was a cosmetic change, and I am sad to confirm today that it is cosmetic change. Since then, I went through this constitution. I read it through carefully. It's 180 articles. I can tell you I spent 2 days on that, and that's a really long thing to read. And well, it's not meaningful change. It's a smokescreen. It's a beautiful smokescreen. I mean, it's well done as a smokescreen, but it is a smokescreen anyway. It gives the impression that the monarchy is devoting some of its powers, the king is devoting some of his powers to the elected prime minister. This is the impression that is given by this constitution. But if you read it through carefully, you find out that it's not the case. In many articles, you have precise provisions that sound somehow progressive or democratic. Then you will find other articles which will either tone down the previous provisions or cancel it altogether. Let me give you some examples to be more precise. For example, it is said that the prime minister has the power to revoke his own ministers, which is the least that you could expect from a prime minister, I suppose, in a democratic system. Now he's called the chief of government, by the way, so it's at least a semantic promotion. But if you continue reading the Constitution, you find out that he doesn't have the right to dismiss his fellow cabinet members. He just has the right to require from the king to do so. And of course, that's a good thing that he has the power to require. I mean, if he didn't have the power to require, that would be really awful. At least he can require stuff. But the king can refuse. So this is not the power of dismissing your cabinet members. This is just the power of being submissive to the king. Again, like in the other constitution. And there are other stuff like that. It's written that the chief of government has the power to dismiss to dismiss parliament, to revoke parliament. I don't know what the exact term in English is. But then this decision can only be made within a body called the Council of Ministers, which is presided by, guess who? The king again. So it's filled with stuff like that, you know. It gives you the impression that the elected officials do have powers, but they don't really have powers. They have just powers, but they are still supervised by the monarchy. And broadly, the king is still the #1 executive authority in the country. He's still the #1 military authority. He's, of course, the #1 religious authority. And in a nutshell, his power is always absolute. So what's this big talk about change? I don't see change happening in this country.
Okay, so you mentioned you used the word, this is a smoke screen. Well, who's benefiting, or who's the victim of this smoke screen? Is it the West? Is it to give an impression to the West that actually Morocco, this has been cited in many Western newspapers as a matter of fact, and I'd like to discuss this aspect a little bit later with you. Who's benefiting from this smoke screen, or who's being, if you want, clouded by the smoke screen? Is it the West, or is it Moroccans, or is it both?
It's both, but for different reasons. It's the West for... I can tell you exactly what the reasons of the West are. And by the West, like, we should be precise because there's no such thing as the West. I mean, the West is made of democracies, and they got plenty of people having different opinions. So they are the government.
America and Europe, right?
No, but even inside America and Europe, you have the government, and you have the press, you have the liberal press, you have the conservative press. That's what democracy is about. It's about diversity of opinions. So there's no such thing as the West. But anyway, in major mainstream media like CNN, like the New York Times, like the Wall Street Journal, like BBC in England, and I'm probably forgetting a lot of important mainstream media, there were... Like, I just recall the last thing I saw. I just loved that headline. That was in the New York Times. It was an op-ed, and the headline was, "Hail the Democratic King." Wow, that sounds just great. Hail the Democratic King. So apparently the smokescreen is working for them, for the West. And to me, I think I said that earlier in the part one of this interview. I think the main reason why the many Western observers are buying this story of Morocco being a democracy or democratic exception is that they are having a comparative perspective based on the Arab world scale. And of course, if your comparison point is Libya, where the leader is slaughtering his own people, or Syria, where people are murdered in the street in an awful way, well, yeah, sure. Nothing alike is happening in Morocco. People are not being slaughtered in the street. But guess what? They are ungrateful enough to still claim democracy. And well, this when it gets to this kind of particular, many Western media just don't want to hear this because I'm not sure, but my feeling, my sense is that they feel like they have this great story. There should be an exception. Exceptions are always good stories in terms of media.
Right.
And there should be an exception in the Arabic world. This is Morocco. And when you tell them, hey, I mean, wake up. This referendum was obviously crooked. 98% of approval. Come on, this cannot be credible. They just don't want to listen because they have the story and they want to stick to it. The Wall Street Journal wrote, this is the Wall Street Journal, it wrote that 98.5% approval rate for yes in the referendum was, quote-unquote, credible? Can you believe that the Wall Street Journal writes that? You know what? I think there is no group in humanity that would agree on anything with such a margin. Like, if you ask people, are they for peace and love, you would have more than 1.5% of people who would say, no, actually, I'm for war and hate. So tell me about a political reform. So this is about the West, or some parts of the West. Then diplomacy on the other side, I suppose diplomats have their own geopolitical reasons, which also have something to do with the comparative perspective, I guess. And this is about the West. About Moroccans, right. Yes, they are fooled by the smokescreen, but the difference of the West, they didn't do, I'm talking about the majority of the people who are either illiterate or very poorly educated, and I'm sad to say this as a Moroccan, but that's sadly the truth. These people were not fooled by the smokescreen because they didn't read the Constitution and because they don't have education enough to read the Constitution and understand it. So basically, they were fooled by one single feature. The king asked them to say yes, and they said yes. That's it. Many of them don't even know why what they say yes to, but they just say yes because Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, asked them to do so. Yes.
So what are the implications of the new constitutions on Moroccans?
Implications? Well, no, there are no implications. That's the thing.
Status quo in terms of status quo, right?
Yeah, it is status quo. Absolutely. There are many. Those who defend the Constitution because the regime has sent its agents all around the world to try to sell this new product to the Western community. And one of their arguments is to say, well, you can't say that there is no change. Now the Constitution is talking about human rights. It's talking about I don't know what. Yeah, when someone is held prisoner by the police, well, the police should read him his rights, like in the American movies. You have the right to remain silent, all that stuff. That's great. I mean, it's like we're in a movie. But come on, this is just talk. I'd like to see this applied on the ground. In the previous constitution as well, they were talk about freedom, about freedom of speech as well, about human rights, about all that stuff. Guess what? It was not applied. Can you believe that? It's really hilarious. I mean, when you have people telling you seriously, this constitution is bringing genuine change because it's talking about human rights, my first impulse is, do you think I'm stupid? I mean, tell me about techniques of powers. Tell me about the king has the right to do this and the prime minister the right to do that. Don't tell me the constitution says that freedom is beautiful. Everyone would agree that freedom is beautiful. What are you doing concretely to implement it? That's the point. And when it comes to concrete stuff, this is just a sham.